स्पोर्ट्स से जुड़ी किसी भी अपडेट के लिए स्पोर्ट्स तक को सब्सक्राइब करें और हमारे फेसबुक और इंस्टाग्राम पेज को भी जरूर फॉलो करें।
Benga, great news for us. Cricket is resuming soon. It's been too long away from cricket. It's difficult to not being able to watch matches or follow various types of formats played across the globe. That's not happened for quite some time. So one good news. But what ICC also has done is they've introduced new rules and regulations in the interim period. And one most important one, which is talked about all across the globe, is not being able to use saliva. What do you think of that?
Well, a big g'day from down under, mate. It's good to see you. Yeah, look, it's a tough call because when you've done something your entire life, from the age of 9, we were taught to put some saliva on your fingers, then place it onto the ball, which is totally legal, and then shine the ball on your pants, on the back of your pants or the front pleat of your pants. That was what we were told. That's what we've grown up with. So all of a sudden to be told something totally different, like you cannot do that, I think it's going to be very hard to stop. I think it'll be very hard to police.
Yeah.
And it's going to take a lot of people a lot of time, I think, to get out of what is a habit. I mean, it'd be like me saying to you, you can't play a straight drive that when they bowl at the stumps. You have to deflect the ball somewhere else. That to me is so hard.
Because your natural reflexes are going to take over. Well, the natural reflexes are going to take over, yeah.
Yeah, and when you're in the moment of the game, I mean, I couldn't even tell you that I even think about, licking my fingers and touching the ball. It's that natural habit. It's what you do. Yeah. It's what I've done my entire career. So I think there has to be a lot of leniency, maybe, 2 or 3 warnings per player, because I can guarantee you if the players are told they can't do it, they won't do it on purpose, but I think it will happen through that natural instinct.
Exactly. And what happens to places like New Zealand or Ireland, or for that matter, even England, in those typical cold English days? What does one do? You're not going to sweat. The first thing you do is you put a thermal on, then you have a long sleeves t-shirt. I remember when I played for Yorkshire in 1992. I went there in the beginning of May and it was freezing. I cannot forget the game we played in Hove as well. I had 5 layers on a thermal t-shirt, a short sleeve jumper, a long sleeve jumper, and in spite of that, I was frozen. So I had to literally practice track top. I turned that inside out, and I wore that.
Wow!
I'm frozen. The only good thing was that I was standing in first slip, so I had to make adjustments. I was literally standing behind the keeper, and second slip was, near my pocket. Yeah, I said,
standing in backstop. Yeah, exactly.
In those days, no social distancing was practiced on the field. So I was lucky then. But what happens now in these conditions? How do you shine the ball when you don't sweat?
When I think about Australia, the parts of Australia get really cold. Tasmania, I mean, you get days down there that go into the single digits. So it's very hard to sweat when the sun's not out or you're in a condition where your body overheats, because that's that natural reaction. It's your body way of cooling itself down. So if it's not hot conditions, how do you then get sweat? If you can't get sweat, how do you then look after the ball? If you can't use saliva and you can't use sweat, what do you do to shine the ball? I don't think it's fair for the bowlers. I think it's a disadvantage to the bowlers if that can't happen. So maybe there's other ways that the ICC also need to look in assisting the bowlers, maybe in giving them something, maybe trying a new substance that they can potentially use that everyone agrees on, that the batsmen are happy with, that the bowlers are happy with. But you're right, it is so difficult. And also too, where do you get the saliva from? As you mentioned, if you're wearing 3, 4, 5 layers of clothing in England when it's freezing cold, you can't just get the sweat off your arms because they're covered up. you have the whole neck's covered up. It's pretty much off the forehead. So it'd be a real tough one, I believe.
It's absolutely. And when it also over a period of time, I realized, because I used to maintain the ball for the team, and there were a number of guys who were designated. We would take it in turns. Each session there were 2 or 3 guys who would look after the ball, and then someone else would take care of it in the next session. So we realized that when you are shining the ball, there are 2 textures. One is your sweat, which is really thin. And one is a concentrated version, which is your saliva. So when you apply sweat on the ball, it nearly cleans the dirt off the ball. When saliva on the ball, then it kind of, it's slightly concentrated, and you can actually work on the ball much better with saliva. So I leave this to the fast bowler who had to do the rest of the job. So did you find any difference in that?
This is you bowling me a bouncer now, this question. Look, there's 2 ways to look at it. Look, I'm definitely not a medical expert, but what I have noticed and what you do learn, coming through playing sport and even through going through school, saliva definitely will contain a lot of sugary sort of components. So what you eat during the day, what you drink, all the sports drinks that we drink to stay hydrated, that will have a high sugar content. And then when you sweat, when that body passes out the fluid through your sweat glands, it'll be a very salty content. So you've got the difference between a salty, what you said true is definitely true. It's a lot thinner type of, fluid coming through, and it's a higher salt content when you sweat, and then a thicker fluidy sort of substance when you use saliva. So there are 2 different ways. It's going to be so hard though to stop those fingers going into the mouth to rub your fingers onto the ball. Then it's going to be so hard to do that. But once again, if you can't use sweat, then what happens? There's nothing in it for the bowler.
Because you see, whatever period we've played, we have used saliva when the ball was new. And when the ball starts reversing, you slowly from saliva, you move to sweat to make one side heavier. And that imbalance in the weight will get the ball to go in that direction. So I found there were 2 ways of getting the ball to reverse. One was to have the imbalance in the weight, and the other one was to keep it smoother, so there is less friction and it travels faster than the scruffed up side. So we are basically left with just one option, isn't it? Now, because the other option of shining and with saliva and not focusing much on getting that side heavy, that option is more or less ruled out, is what I would say. It is only the sweat that one would have to work on.
Yeah, and you were absolutely spot on there as well, because it's when you use sweat only, and if you're trying to load up one side of the ball, it acts as a counterbalance weight. It's like a lawn bowls. There's got like a one heavier side, so the ball will naturally go to the heavier side. It's the way that physics works, and that doesn't always happen though in cricket. There are times where you can load up one side of the ball to make it heavier, but it doesn't always work as well as you'd like it. There are days where it just goes beautifully. There are days where you give it too heavy. So it's a really fine balance of getting the ball just enough weight, that extra bit of weight for it to tail back in, but not too much. But that takes out that natural way to go with the aerodynamics of having a ball where you use that saliva. So yeah, look, it is taking out one aspect of the armory for fast bowlers, which is it kills me to say it.
So I was just coming to that point. So now it's considered, putting saliva is unhygienic.
Yeah.
Is putting sweat on the ball hygienic with this mindset that we have now of social distancing and all those kind of things? Putting sweat on the ball is hygienic. Would you want to catch the ball? I would think twice, because now it's somewhere it's registered that it might be hygienic.
But also thinking about it from a hygiene perspective now, to think about, we all got this piece of leather that's wrapped around a cork 156 grams that we lick it and we put saliva on it and we all throw it to each other. I mean, it's gross. But look, it's a bodily fluid, whether it's saliva or whether it's sweat. So I'm sure, there has been tests done. They reckon that COVID-19 is passed on quicker because of the saliva in your body. But I'm sure if they did a lot more tests, and in time we'll probably know more, surely it has to get passed on through sweat too. Maybe not as much, but yeah, look, maybe it's Sachin the best way to do it. Look, I think that they'll probably give it a test run and see how it goes, but maybe they go, listen, there's no sweat, no saliva in the ball at all. Maybe they'll try and come up with some other substance.
Do you think bowler's life is going to get tougher and tougher in time to come?
Yeah, look, I think so. There are a number of ways that you can actually, I think, make it a bit easier for the bowler, make a bit more of a sportier wicket. I'm not talking about a green seamer that the team we bowled out for 130, but you want something in it for the fast bowlers. There's been talk about getting the bowlers, a better option in Test match cricket to get the ball, second new ball a bit newer, maybe instead of 80 overs, 60 overs or 40 overs. But also, too, I think the best component of playing Test cricket, and I know from a bowling point of view that if I'm bowling in what would be the sort of 60 or 80th over with the old ball, that is as exciting bowling to a batsman that's in to try and get a batsman out. And sometimes I'd rather bowl that old ball. So I don't want to take that part of the game. You know that when, a Shoaib Akhtar's running into bowl or someone that's got good pace or, a Sean Tate or a Dale Steyn with the old ball, it can be very, very hard to face. And you got all the tricks. Wasim Akram was a genius at it. So I don't want to see that aspect of Test cricket lost either.
Team is leading the series. Would they still keep a bowler-friendly wicket in the last Test match when they know that they've kind of closed the series? So they would somebody from ICC be there to monitor what's happening?
Yeah.
Before the game and not merely write a report that this pitch was flat.
Definitely. And, when you look at, how do you also police that? Is there a certain tinge of green that has to be on there? Is there a certain colour that they have to adhere to? It's impossible to police. You can't just get a third umpire to go out and go, oh, yeah, that looks flat, but it's not flat enough. I mean, what's flat enough? Is there a certain amount of
it's
level?
Subjective. It's subjective.
Yeah, it is. It is. So it's almost like you have to drop a ball from a certain height and get a certain amount of bounce out of it to constitute, a fair wicket. It's going to make cricket so hard and so difficult. And we both know, mate, that cricket should be a very, very simple game. A simple but a very pleasurable game to play.
Exactly, because that is going to get a little complicated. How do you monitor these things? And if the wicket is not helpful for the bowlers, what is one going to do? Only fill up those forms and say that, okay, the pitch was not good, but the match is done. The damage is done. It's too late. It's too late.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
So why not? I thought of these things, and I felt maybe to make the game exciting. Because today everyone wants faster format. Everyone wants to have more action. T20 anyways is there. ODIs is also, with the rules and regulations. Average score is 300. I mean, nobody thinks that 300 is a mega total, won't be possible to chase. 300 is quite a normal total today. And in Test cricket, suddenly, if the surfaces are not good, the standard of playing, I feel, drops down. And above all, the game slows down because the batter knows that if I don't play a stupid shot here, no one can get me out. And the bowler knows that on this surface, I have to be patient. So I'm going to just, stay around off stump or maybe even wider. And
that's pretty much how I felt every time I bowled to you, mate. That's how I felt. I can't get you out.
No way. I won't get into statistics there. But
you're right.
Why not then, to get the game moving, have a new ball maybe after every 45, 50 overs or 55 overs, because in ODI cricket, we have to play only 50 overs and we have two new balls there. In ODI cricket, two new balls in 50 overs. So literally 25 overs. That's it. So here in Test cricket, if you're not going to allow saliva, and sometimes you won't sweat as much, because I feel depending on which part of the world you play, because if you're playing in cooler climate, then you're not going to sweat as much. But if you play in continent, Sri Lanka, India, for that matter, also in the Middle East, you'll sweat a lot. So the difference is, like in ODI cricket, bowling when the conditions are dry in a day-night match, and bowling second when there is a lot of dew on the ground. Though on paper the conditions and rules are exactly the same, but on-field conditions are totally different. It's chalk and cheese.
Well, look, I think there's two ways to look at this. There's that way that you reckon and believe that potentially we could change the ball at 45 or 50 overs. So you get a brand new ball when you start, only from one end. And
it's not mandatory. And it's not mandatory. If you want to change, you can change. But the ball is available after whatever, that 45, 50 or 55, whatever.
Yeah, call it 50 overs, right? So you get a brand new ball when you start. After 50 overs, you've got the option to take a second new ball rather than 80 overs, right? So you're 30 overs better off.
Yeah.
The other way to look at it is, with the technology these days, they can get a ball that's, say, 40 overs old, that a bit like the third umpire comes out with a bag of balls, right? And then maybe after 30 or 40 overs, they can have a pre-made, scuffed up, one side scuffed up, that's all been done in a proper cricket shop, that it's all, overseen by the ICC, that is tailor-made for reverse swing. Now, I'm not talking about the ball hooping around a corner, but just enough scuffness on one side, so it changes the condition on one side of the ball to allow it to move around. That's the other option. If they pre-make a ball, call it a reverse swing ball, that they might have the option to get that after 40 overs, I think that players also might go for that. So the bowler knows that you bowl with your normal ball for the first 40 overs. After 40 overs, normally when the ball starts to sort of tail around, you can't use saliva, you can't use sweat, but we will give you a pre-made reverse swing ball that you can use up until maybe the 80th over, and then you got the option then to change that as well. That's just another suggestion I thought about overnight that could also work for the bowlers.
That's a good suggestion, and I feel that there has to be some help for bowlers as well to be able to extract something out of the surface, if you're not able to use saliva, then to be able to work something with the ball. ICC should take this into consideration. If we are not going to allow saliva, and there are places where you don't sweat, why not use wax or some external substance, whatever? And I know I heard a statement somewhere that all these things that we are talking about, a year ago, players were reprimanded for that, and players were fined for various things. But today, the times are different. Coronavirus was not there then. Today we are thinking differently. The whole discussion is about the change of the condition of the ball, because we will, with the restriction of not being able to use your saliva, you'll not be able to get exactly what we've been doing for years on it.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Do you think a bottle of wax can be given to two umpires and per inning? Now it depends how many number of overs you want to use the ball, but you will get X grams of wax per inning.
Yep.
And that is your quota for that inning or for that ball. And when you get a new ball, then you get another quota, which is another bottle of wax that ICC needs to decide how many grams. And if you are able to get the opposition out before that, the remaining wax cannot be used in the second innings. It is only for the first inning. So it's like a team declaring, 550 or 600 for 4 wickets down. In the second innings, they don't have 16 wickets to bat. They only get 10 wickets to bat. So it is exactly that way.
I like that idea. And, you're right by saying, back when people have been reprimanded for doing the wrong thing, that was because they broke the rules. They broke the law in cricket, which you're not allowed to do. That's the reason why they've been reprimanded. And so they should be. And I totally agree with that.
Yes, I totally agree.
What's happened.
Yeah.
Now, it's when you're trying to introduce something new, that's fine because the game has changed. Life has changed. I think the way that we live now is going to be totally different. So I've got no issue whatsoever. And I like the idea of having, a little tub of wax. One thing to be careful of is that the Julios or the good-looking blokes in the team will be using that through their hair, and you won't get much on the ball. So they could waste it all. So it could be someone in the slips thinking, "Yep, might have to make sure my hair looks good." So no, look. In all seriousness, I think it's a very
maybe you could add
idea.
A little bit of dye into that wax, so you'll know who's trying to be over smart.
That's right. Just cover the greys up, please. Cover the greys up. No, but that's a good idea because then what happens then? That also becomes a new tactic in the game of cricket. So that you haven't got an open tub of wax. You get a certain amount, as you said, a number of grams, and then have to work it out by doing testing in the nets. But then I like that because that becomes another skill part of the game. So you can't use all the wax in the first 5 overs and then there's nothing left. Bad luck. You got to just suck it up. That's the way it is. So yeah, I definitely think it's got merit, and why not give it a go?
100%.
Why not? I think it's great.
I feel the best way to experiment on these things is to try, a couple of games in different parts of the world and make them play first-class matches with these rules and see how the players respond to that, whether it's beneficial or not. We'll get to know. I feel, rather than, fiddling too much with everything.
Yeah.
Can you just introduce a simple formula? We are discussing multiple options here.
Yeah.
But can there be a simple formula which can be used in future? And it's only for the interim period. I mean, it's not forever that we are changing. We'll soon, when we are out of this COVID situation, I think we can tell the players that enough of this wax business. Now it's back to saliva.
But also too, Sachin, we have got the technology around the world now, from what I understand, that you can pretty much test for COVID-19 in the space of maybe less than an hour or two. So prior to a game of cricket, why wouldn't every single person be tested? And even though if they're not showing symptoms, if they're tested and they come back negative, it means that they're negative, as long as they stay in that bubble for the next hour until they get onto the ground. So that to me would solve all problems. Get the testing done rather than change the game of cricket with no saliva, no sweat or little bits of sweat, or we have to use wax. Why not just get everyone tested before they go out, 2 hours before, they stay in the bubble. It's a sealed off environment where it's COVID free, and then go about the game as per usual. And then if they test obviously positive, they can't play the game. I mean, that's the other option too. To me, that's the same option.
I mean, if there is an option like that, then of course one should allow that because eventually, just hypothetically, if somebody is bowling and a square cut is played, it's in a tight situation. Players tend to bite their nails. Multiple things happen. You constantly fiddling around with your hair or rub your eyes or whatever. And these are dangerous things. So you've stopped the ball after doing that. You've passed the ball to cover. Cover passes the ball to mid-off, and it goes back to the bowler again. If you are positive, then you've passed on that infection to 4 guys. And if you're negative, how does it matter if you're being tested in the morning before the game and you are kept in that bubble, as you're saying? You don't have any contact with the outside world. You walk out on the field and you're back again in the dressing room. Then you allow them to put saliva on the ball.
Yep. I agreed. Also, too, eventually when we get back to the stage where we can have spectators at the ground, what happens when you hit a six? What happens when the ball goes into the crowd, when they're allowed to have it? If we still have these measures in place, then are you going to test every single person in the crowd? You know, what's stopping them from having...
Then you put sanitizer on the ball.
Maybe that's what they need. Maybe do some testing to see sanitizer. You've cracked the code. You've cracked the code. Sanitizer on the ball.
Sanitizer on the ball.
I don't think it'll work, but we can run with it.
Yeah, we can always experiment. I'm just joking. So this year end, India is coming to Australia. Unfortunately, the stands are going to be empty. But good for you guys, isn't it? Because after a long time, you guys are going to feel at home. This is going to be your real home series. Otherwise, all the stands are filled up by Indian fans, supporters, isn't it?
Well, it's true. And it's a good point. Very good point. Because the boys in blue, when they come down under, they get a lot of support by the crowd because there's a lot of Indians, Australians that all wear, and they're so Aussie every day, like 23 and a half hours a day, they're Australian. But when India plays cricket, they go, sorry, I'm still Australian, but I'm also Indian now, and this is my heritage, as it should be, which is great. So, look, I really, really do hope, though, Sachin, that when India does come out to Australia, that there will be spectators allowed, and hopefully, with the way Australia's
let's keep our fingers crossed. Yeah,
fingers crossed. But if it's not, look, it's obviously going to be difficult to. I know that when I played cricket, to me, I got a lot of the energy from the crowd. You know, if there's a game, I think it was in Melbourne or Sydney, where you went 4-4-4-4 in a one-day match, and the crowd went berserk. And I was feeding off that crowd to try to get your wicket. So if you're playing in a sterile environment, it's going to be so hard, not so hard to get yourself up, but so hard to get yourself into the contest knowing that the crowd are watching and the crowd are being part of that.
I mean, you draw so much energy from them because be it a boundary or a wicket or you're in the middle of a big spell, you draw so much energy. If you've picked a wicket or if you've hit a six, crowd becomes part of that celebration. And you want them to, amplify that so that the next ball is even better. And that is what crowd brings to the stadium. And I've thoroughly enjoyed my time in Australia. I thought the crowd was fantastic. They've always been so loving and so appreciative of good performances. I think I've come across many Australians who've wished well for me and wanted me to go out and do well, but obviously wanted Australia to win. But I've come across so many people like that. So you've got fond memories about visiting many parts of the world, without any doubt. Australia, Sydney is special ground, and let me tell you, man,
it is.
That's a beautiful ground.
It's a great spot, and maybe if there isn't any crowds, maybe they can have speakers with a fake crowd in, and the old token.
That's what they were talking about.
Sachin, just to make you feel comfortable if you're up commentating up in the crowd, mate.
No, I thoroughly enjoyed playing there, and Sydney being my favorite ground. I thought it was spectacular. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So hopefully, by the time Indian team comes to Australia, things are much, much better, and the crowds are able to come inside the stadium to watch. Yeah,
we'll keep praying, and hopefully we get some cricket in shortly, because I'm so excited. Look, I miss it. I'm playing a lot of backyard cricket, a bit of cricket in the garage, but looking forward to getting back to the real stuff.
So am I. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be special. Lovely, nice chatting with you, Vinder, and hopefully we shall catch up soon.
Yeah, sounds good, mate. You take care, and love to the family as always.
Thank you. You reciprocate that.